Hiya friends, today we made a fall staple. Now if you guys have persimmon trees in your yard and you have my Pure and Sweet Recipes cookbook, you're going to want to turn to page 91 and make yourself a persimmon pudding. Look at that. Oh my goodness, you guys, it is so moist and delicious and flavorful, and it is just all the things fall should be. Welcome back to In the Kitchen with Tabby. Let's get cooking. All right, friends, let's get this round 2 of persimmon pudding put together. Now, like I told you the other day, I made this once already and my video was not recording. User error, it was my fault, but Dale's pretty happy about it because that means I'm gonna make another one because the first one's gone and we did share some of that. But anyway, the first one's gone. So I'm gonna make this second one here, and I'm gonna share it also with my sweet friend, Roseanne, who is here with me today. So she's gonna get to have some too. So we're gonna get this mixed up. It's gonna go pretty quick. I've got everything set out here that we need. So in my large mixing bowl here, I've already put 2 cups of sugar. Now the full recipe will be on my website and it will be in the post right above the video. So I'm not gonna give you all of the measurements. But just so you know, 2 cups of sugar, and then we're going to put in some baking soda, and then we're going to throw into that 2 beaten eggs. And this is the star of the show, the persimmon pulp. So we've got 2 cups of persimmon pulp here. So we're going to put all of that in. And you might be wondering, how many persimmons does it take to make 2 cups? I didn't count, but I would say on average, depending on their size, probably about 75 to 100 persimmons. And that will get you your 2 cups of pulp. And we have a fairly large tree in our yard. We've already gathered twice, and I've gathered enough to make 3 persimmon puddings, so about 6 cups. So that gives you an idea how many persimmons we've picked up, and there's still a ton more on the tree that are still going to drop that we'll still be able to harvest this year. We can usually harvest more than we need for a given year, but then I can always freeze it. And then we do like to leave some of them on the ground for the deer and the animals and stuff, the raccoons and things like that. They like them too, especially the deer, because the deer can't reach them up in the tree. All right, so we've got the egg, the sugar, the persimmon pulp, and the baking soda. And now we're just going to mix this up and get it all really well combined. It always amazes me because you can see what a beautiful color that is. Just a really nice kind of a burnt orange. Beautiful shade of orange. I love the color of it. But when it bakes and is completely done, it turns into a very, very dark brown, almost burgundy. Very, very dark. You'll see when we take it out. And I want to know in the comments if you guys have persimmon trees where you are. Let me know in the comments. I had some people tell me that they have seen persimmons that are as big as an orange, and I have never seen persimmons that big. So I would love to know if you guys have persimmons where you are. And what do you use them for? Do you do persimmon pudding, persimmon cookies? I heard somebody say they make persimmon cake. I've never made a persimmon cake. I have made persimmon cookies before, but persimmon pudding is Dale's favorite. So that's usually what I do. All right, we've got that all mixed up in there. Looks great. Now we're going to add the rest of our ingredients. So I'm going to add 2 cups of whole milk. You could probably use 2% if you wanted. I don't think I would use skim though. You want a little more fat in there. So we use whole milk in this house. So that's what I'm using. And then I'm going to add in our, let's see, I think I'll do my baking powder. We got to have 2 teaspoons. And then we're going to do a ½ teaspoon of salt. Teaspoon of vanilla. I like to use really good vanilla. You guys know I make my own, but if I did not make my own, I would get a really good pure vanilla extract. It really does make all the difference in the world. It might be a little bit more expensive, but it really does make a lot of difference. So this is the extract that I made last year. So put about a teaspoon in there. Measure with your heart. I might go just a little bit more. Next goes the cinnamon. Recipe calls for 2 teaspoons. I go heavy on the cinnamon. I like a lot of cinnamon. So I probably put just maybe a little bit shy of 3 teaspoons, or almost a tablespoon. Y'all probably already know 3 teaspoons is a tablespoon. So, all right. And the last thing is the flour. Well, not the last thing. Next to the last thing is the flour. This is 1.5 cups, and I am using gluten-free flour. I'm using the King Arthur's 1-to-1 ratio. It comes out exactly perfect. I've never had an issue with it. So we're going to add that in. And of course, you can use regular flour if you want to, but we're using the gluten-free for Dale. And then our last ingredient is going to be 1 stick of melted butter. And I did melt it in the oven, and so it did brown just a little bit. That does not hurt a thing, I promise you. If anything, it adds a really delicious extra little touch of flavor when you just brown that butter just a little bit. Of course, I don't think you can brown it if you melt it in the microwave. So if you melt it in the oven while your oven is preheating, or you can put it in a little saucepan and melt it in your saucepan and just let it slightly brown, and it just really adds a delicious flavor. All right, friends, that's all of the ingredients. Now we're just going to get this really well mixed up. And I just use my whisk for this. You can use a hand mixer if you want, but I typically don't. I typically just use my hand whisk. Just take your time and get that all blended in well so that all of that pulp is combined really well, and all of your flour, you don't have any little clumps of flour in there. I think I've got it all blended up. So I've got my oven preheated to 325, and I have a 9x13 pan here that I have just lightly buttered in the bottom and up the sides. So now we're going to put this beautiful persimmon pudding batter in this pan, and we're going to get it baked up. Come over here with me. Make sure you can see what's going on. There we go. Look at that beautiful batter. It's a lot of batter, and it will fluff up as it's baking, but as it cools, it settles down and gets a little flatter, more dense. Let's get all of this goodness out of here. There it is. Let's get it in the oven. 325 degrees. Got it in the oven. We're going to set the timer for 55 minutes. It usually takes about 60. The recipe says 55 to 60 minutes. Every oven is different. Mine always takes right at 60 minutes, but I always check it at 55 just to make sure, because you don't want to overbake it or it'll get too dry. All right, so when it's ready to come out and we check it, I'll come back and we'll do it together. I promise I won't do it without you. Hang tight. All right, friends, there it is. Isn't that beautiful? You can see how tall that is. That is right to the top of my pan. But as it cools, it's going to sink in the bottom. So if you've never made it before, don't panic. It's okay. But it will sink in the bottom here, or in the middle, and just kind of sink down. And the sides will probably stay up and curl just a little bit. I did test it in the middle. There's a little tiny hole there in the center, and it tested perfectly clean. And it was right at 60 minutes, just like always. So for my oven, 60 minutes. But like I said, I always start checking it at 55 just to make sure. All right, we'll be back in just a couple minutes when we're ready to give it a taste. All right, friends, so here it is. And I'm not gonna be able to taste it with you because, as you can see, we have already enjoyed it, and I was so excited to eat it that I forgot to record me tasting a bite. And Dale has already eaten some, and Roseanne has already eaten some. We put a little Cool Whip on top, and I'm telling you right now, like I said in the beginning of the video, this is everything fall should be. It is just absolutely delicious. Dale said it kind of reminds him of pumpkin pie, but much, much better. He likes this much better. I love pumpkin pie and I love this. I would put them on the same level as far as I'm concerned, but the texture of it is similar to a pumpkin pie. So if you've never had persimmon pudding, that's kind of, you can see the density of it, and you saw how fluffy it was, and you can see how now it's kind of sunk down, and it's actually gotten a little bit darker in color even. But it's got just the perfect amount of cinnamon in there, perfect amount of vanilla. It's just delicious. I'm telling you guys. And like I told you earlier, I used the gluten-free flour, and you cannot tell the difference. If you get that King Arthur's 1-for-1 ratio gluten-free flour, it is absolutely amazing flour. I love, love, love it. Remember, if you have my Pure and Sweet Recipes cookbook, you'll want to turn to page 91. Let me just turn there for you, right there, 91. It's right here on the bottom, Mamaw's Persimmon Pudding, and it is absolutely amazing. And I know there's a lot of different ways to make it. If you have a different way to make it, I would love to know what your recipe looks like. Maybe I can try it. I've still got some pulp left, and we've still got a ton of persimmons on the tree. All right, guys, remember the full recipe will be in the post above the video, or if you're on YouTube, it's going to be down below the video. Click on more and it'll be down there. And then it will also be on the website in thekitchenwithtabbi.com. Remember, I love you so, so much, but God loves you even more than I do. Also, don't forget, He is the unseen guest at every dinner table, silent listener at every single conversation. So when you're speaking to yourself or you're speaking to other people, just make sure those words are pure and sweet and that you're lifting each other up and loving on each other and shining that light bright, because that's what we're called to do. Let's just all work together to make the world a little bit brighter. How about that? All right, guys, remember, get in the kitchen, make something fun, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.